We decided that there was no point to walking since we had no idea where to walk. We'd just have to stay with the car and hope someone found us. It would be easier to spot it than to spot two kids wandering nowhere. It seemed like a long walk back to the car, but once we got there, I decided that I'd promised Robbie I wasn't going to quit, and I'd do my best not to. Okay, first thing is that I gotta try to remember what it said in my Scout badge book about wilderness survival. Little bits started coming back to me. We have to try not to sweat. Robbie looked disgusted. Geez, we're lost in a huge desert with no one around, and you're worrying about not smelling? You think Jennifer Watkins is going to come with the rescue people? He tried to imitate her voice. Are you afraid she'll say, "Oh, Scott, I'm glad you're safe, but you smell too bad for me to kiss"? I smiled in spite of myself. I do not like Jennifer Watkins. How many times have I told you that? You just think she should be your girlfriend. Wrong about that, and way wrong about why we can't sweat. Doesn't have to do with Jennifer. The survival book said that to stay alive in the desert, you can't get dehydrated. I sighed. If we had lots of water, that would be easy. Since we don't, I'm not sure what we'll do. Right now, I think I'd rather have air conditioning than water. Boy, that sun is hot. He wiped his forehead. I wish we at least had a little shade. Let's get in the car. We can't stay in the car. It'll be too hot. It can't be hotter. I was too tired to argue with him. Get in, I said, shrugging. I will, he replied defiantly. It didn't take Robbie long to get out of the car again. Okay, you're right, but why? Remember all those warnings on TV about not leaving your dog in the car in the summer because when it's 100 degrees outside, it can be 130 in the car? Great, Robbie said. The car is the only shade we have for as far as we can see, and we can't use it. What are we supposed to do, make shade? That's it, Robbie, I shouted. You're brilliant. I am? He looked confused. Yeah, that's what we have to do. We have to make shade. Uh-huh, make shade. Scott, I was only kidding. It's not exactly like we can grow a tree right here. We don't have any way to make it shady. I mean, we could ask the sun to set early today, but I don't think it would. I walked over to the car and pulled open the door. We need to start looking at every single thing in this car to see how it could help us. Let's start with the back seat. Geez, it's hot in here, Robbie said. Yeah, well, grab anything you see, and we'll get out. Look, Robbie said, pulling a big white beach towel from under the seat. And I think there's another one jammed in here. We climbed out of the car with two big white beach towels. So, what do we do with them? Robbie asked. I looked at them carefully and stared at the desert around us. My eyes stopped on two large saguaros off to the right that were real close together. Robbie, get the towels. I've got an idea. I walked over to the cacti and heaved one towel up toward it. The towel fell to the ground. Darn, I said. I picked it up and tossed it again. This time the end of the towel caught on some of the needles on one of the arms of the cactus. Then I took the end of the towel still dangling on the ground and tossed it at the other cactus until it had caught too. Look, we have shade, I said proudly. Robbie came over to stand under the towel. Wow, he said. Let's see what else is in the car. We returned to the car and pulled out everything we could find onto the ground next to the hood. It wasn't long before we had quite a pile. I never knew our car had so much junk, Robbie exclaimed. Good thing, I answered. We're going to have to turn it into our survival gear. We had gotten 2 carpeted floor mats from the floor of the front seat and a seat cushion from the driver's seat. We had also found 2 unwrapped cookies that had been wedged under the front seat, part of 1 roll of lifesavers, a sharp tool to pry off hubcaps, a pad of paper and a pencil, and all the packages that Mom had bought at the mall. Also, while tearing through the car, we'd finally located the jack and the spare tire. They too were now on the ground. I looked at everything and I wondered how to use it all. I opened one of the bags and the white skirt and blouse that Mom had bought tumbled onto the ground. I picked them up and threw the skirt at Robbie. Put this on. No way, Robbie squealed. Get serious. I am serious. It's like the camel drivers in the movies. Remember, they always wore those white head things and long white robes? This is the closest we've got. Uh-huh. How come you aren't wearing a skirt? because you're my little brother and we only have one skirt. I'm trying to help you." "It's okay, Scott. You go ahead and take it. In fact, you know how Mom always complains that we don't share enough? Well, I really want you to get to wear this skirt." Robbie grinned. "Okay, fine, I will." I stared at the skirt for a minute and pulled it on. It reached the tops of my basketball shoes. Then I took the blouse and wound it around my head like a turban. Robbie laughed. "Wait until the TV crews get a look at you. You'll never live this down at school." I had to admit that it was really weird to be wearing a skirt. Still, I wasn't kidding when I told him about the camel drivers, so if Robbie wanted to laugh, let him. I had more problems to worry about than Robbie's smirks. I bent down and picked up the hubcap tool and tried to get the hubcap off the car. I don't know what I was doing wrong, but nothing would make it come loose. I was so mad that I finally stood up and kicked the dumb thing. "Ouch!" I yelled as my foot fully felt the pain of the kick. "Darn, I guess we'll have to do without them." "What do we need hubcaps for?" I was going to try to make them into a signal for any planes that might fly by. I thought the metal might reflect the sun, but nothing's going to get the hubcaps off the car. Let's go work on making ourselves a better shady spot. I tried to remember what else the book had said about surviving. It said something about staying cooler if you didn't sit right on the ground. You needed to be up a foot or so. I wondered if we could get one of the seats out of the car, but I didn't see how. Then I looked at the arms of the saguaro. I didn't really think they'd hold us, and besides, they were covered with cactus needles. Ouch. It hurt just to think about it. I walked back over to the car and looked again at all our stuff, wishing it would somehow turn into something great to get us out of here. Unfortunately, nothing had changed. I stared at the spare tire and then walked over to it. I stood it on edge and began rolling it. "Hey," Robbie said, "where are you going with that? You think you're going to just roll out of the desert? Get it? Roll out of the desert?" I ignored him and rolled the tire until I could plop it down in the shady spot I'd created under the saguaros. Unfortunately, there was no way two people could fit on the tire, and no way that I knew how to get one of the other tires off the wheels. I couldn't even get the dumb hubcaps off. The sun was making my head hurt, but I tried to think what else I could use. There was nothing big, so I started taking little rocks and even some broken cactus and piling them on top of each other. "Hey, Robbie," I called. "I could use some help here." There was no answer. It was easier to keep finding little things to pile on top of each other than to go get Robbie. Bit by bit, the pile was growing higher. When it was finally as high as the tire, I headed back over to the car. "Robbie, what are you doing?" "Over here," he grunted. I walked around the car. Robbie had gotten 3 hubcaps off the car and was working on the 4th. "Nice going," I said, and I really was impressed. "Take them over to the shady spot, then come back for some more stuff." Robbie grinned. "Thanks. They weren't so easy to get off, but I did it." I pushed his baseball cap down on his head. Maybe we really were going to make it after all. Eventually, we had the hubcaps and the floor mats, the gulpers, and the seat cushion. We put the gulpers in the shade, and I threw the carpeted floor mats and the seat cushion on the makeshift seats I had made. I put the hubcaps in front of us in the sun. I glanced down at my arm. My watch read 9 a.m. I couldn't believe it. How could it already feel so hot so early? All we had left to get was the lifesavers and the cookies, and then we had to wait for what I hoped wouldn't be too long to get rescued. As we got closer to the car, I decided we should put up the hood so anyone from far away could see the car was in trouble. I went to the front of the car and tried to open the hood. Staring at it, I yelled to Robbie, "Hey, come here. You see any way to get this thing open?" Robbie looked, but he couldn't find any kind of handle either. "Maybe this'll help," Robbie offered, and he banged on the hood. "Yow, my hand is burning," he yelled, but the hood remained shut. "Oh, never mind," I said. "Maybe the dumb thing is just broken." Robbie looked at me. "Hey, I got another idea. Why don't we open all the doors? Then we'll have even more stuff to see." As I was opening the car doors, I glanced inside the car and I saw the black lever marked hood release. I felt like an idiot. In no time, we had the hood open, and then I got another idea. I took part of the nightgown that was supposed to have been for Aunt Susan. Opening the window washer container next to the radiator, I dipped the nightgown into it. While it was still dripping with soapy water, I tore the material into strips. "Put this around the back of your neck. We can't drink the water, but we can use it to help us stay cool. I put some strips of the wet blue lacy material around my neck, and Robbie began to snicker. If only Jennifer could see you now. I threw a strip around his neck. I was not going to talk about Jennifer. Let's go sit in the shade, I said. Wait, look what I thought of while you were getting the hood up. Robbie proudly pointed to the side mirrors, which he had tilted upward to catch the sun's reflection. Airplanes have to see them, don't you think? Nice going, Robbie. Give me 5, I said. Robbie looked extremely pleased with himself. We're awesome, and we're going to get rescued. I just know it.